Um, Again, my name is Francine, and my first publication, my first published poem was actually in the Alaska Quarterly Review, and that was in spring and summer edition 2020. So I had two pieces published, and one of them went on to be chosen, to be on the Best American Poetry, which was surprising to me. But it was also very special because I guess um, it has been published in numerous journals. It really, when people listen to it or read it, it gives them a new perspective, or it does something. Anyway, that's the poem I'd like to start off with in this poetry reading. And before I read a poem, I'll kind of introduce what it's about, just so you can follow along and not, when you're switching from poem to poem, I kind of want to give a context of where the poem is coming from. So this one is the first one that was published. I was trained as a lawyer. I don't have a background in literature. I started writing poetry as a way to deal with the trauma, that I experienced while working for the National Inquiry, because we heard a lot of really traumatic stories of family members talking about their loved ones. So as a way to cope and to continue on with this job, I started writing poetry. And I guess I had a talent for it because I had entered my poetry into contests, and it resonated with people. And so I'm still here, and this is my first book that I published, which I'm going to be reading from. ISKOTEW ISKWEW, Poetry of a Northern Rez Girl. And ISKOTEW ISKWEW is a Cree, they're Cree words. ISKOTEW means fire, and Iskwew means woman. So fire woman. And I'm also going to be publishing a Cree version of this book. So it's all going to be in the Cree language. I forgot to mention I am a member of the Cree Nation, and specifically the Woodland Cree, which is, we are located in Northern Saskatchewan. And the First Nation that I come from, there's 13,000 members of Woodland Cree, just for our particular group of people. So I would like to start off with a poem called Since Time Immemorial. I've heard these words spoken repeatedly as a child, the story of my Indigenous history shared with audience after audience, burnt into my memory. We've been here since time immemorial. It means a time so long ago that people have no memory or knowledge of it. Filling out my law school application, how long has your family lived in Saskatchewan? I pause for a moment, then write, since time immemorial. What would have been other options before Saskatchewan was, we were? I got in, nobody questioned my answer. Another one I'd like to read is about the residential school experience. In Canada, they had residential schools for Indigenous children. And this went on for at least 126 years, where the government and religious organizations like the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, took kids from their families so that they could go educate them, in a different place away from their parents. And so, first of all, I'd like to read a little bit of my experience. It's just a small small poem. And this one is called Prince Albert Indian Residential School Student, which I was back in the late 80s. It was the late 80s. We were still babies, supervised by ladies, far from home, lined up like inmates, girls crying at night, souls slowly dying. Kids running to get home, caught, they had to pay. Leave it in the past, get over it, they say. But shit, I got hit. Okay then, I'll quit. I'll get good and lit. And this one is my mom's experience. Fortunately for her, her parents they didn't allow her, or they prevented her from going to school. And this one is called Precious Inheritance. Joe, we're here for your children. They will receive the best education by God's holy men and women. Treated only with dignity and respect, they will eat the best foods. Comfort and laughter will fill their days. No, that's okay, Joe says. I can take care of my own children. Now, Joe, if you don't allow your children to be educated, you will not receive your monthly check. Guillaume, who cares? I don't need your check. You can shove it where the sun don't shine. All three walk away, one in a headdress, one in a black robe with a fancy cross, one in a pressed suit. From my hiding place, I emerge, a little girl of 6. The significance of my father's Guillaume escapes me for years. Language intact, traditions unbroken, culture continuous, inheritance for my children. I'll read a poem called Pelican Narrows, which is where I'm from and where I grew up. I'm from Pelican Narrows, a res up north with crows and sparrows, nestled between pine trees, by a lake with gentle breeze, a place where Nietzsche's like to tease. We are better known as Crees. Pelican people like to fish, to catch the big one, ashore lunch on a metal dish, and when someone farts, they say, whiz. Pelican people like their bannock and tea. When they're surprised, they say, ee. Up north in the bush, they feel free. Looking for agreement, they say, tse. Pelican people like to camp, tents, blankets, kerosene lamps. Driving the boat usually for Gramps, through Wood Lake and up Frog Portage Ramp. Pelican people like moose meat, fried with potatoes and onions. Pastiwias, jerky is a treat. Iguamina imidomitzitik sweets. There are many more things to say, but for now I will call it a day, iguse. So some of my poetry is in the Cree language. And if you get the book, the Cree language is translated. I will read a poem called Family Vacation. So when I was a kid, I always wanted to go to Disney World as a family vacation, but we went to the trap line instead, because my mom grew up on the trap line, and so that's where she took us for vacation. Family vacation. Little brown girl longed to go to Disneyland. We went to the trap line instead, McGinnis Lake, on a beaver float plane high above the trees, lake upon lake, green upon green, unloading the cargo on a rickety wooden dock, hauling packs of flour and potatoes to the one-room cabin with a bunk bed and a queen, where Ma and Pa slept, a wooden table and chairs, all handmade, a small black stove with a long metal pipe peeking from the roof. The radio high above, tucked away in the corner, beyond the reach of children, people playing, telling stories, music playing. One summer, Johnny Cash ring a fire and it burns, burns, burns. A gutawan outside where Ma cooked, a pot of tea faithful beside the coals. Swimming all day in dark brown water, following the many trails leading out like spider legs, never venturing far, I didn't want to meet a bear. Making tree forts, tag and croquet till late evening, supper around the campfire, loons telling us the weather tomorrow. Piling into the cabin, Dad lighting the kerosene lamp. When everyone was in place, he extinguished the hiss. Told us kids a few tales, always ending with golden hand. No one told golden hand like Dad, heart pumping, chilling. I'd rather have McGinnis Lake than Disneyland any summer. And this one is about my mother. You know, this book I wrote is dedicated to my mother who passed about 5 years ago. So I'll read this and one more and I should be done. My mother's love. My mother was traditional in her ways, an unbroken line of love extended through her. Love born long ago, sparked by Creator's hand. In the boreal forest, where rivers flowed pristine and lakes glistened in the morning light. This is the love that got her up in the early mornings to cook us breakfast. The love that never wavered in the midst of wicked storms. And if you want to know this love, it flows. It can be heard in the beat of the drum, can be seen when Kukum cooks bannock in an open fire by the lake, can be tasted when biting into freshly cooked moose meat, can be smelled in freshly picked mint, the one put in tea, can be felt in a warm embrace, never wanting to let go. This is the love that flows through us now, an unbroken line of love extending through time, sparked by Creator's hand. And the last one I'd like to read is called Reconciliation. Settler colonialism is resistant to change, it's stubborn. But a new vision is being created of reconciliation. I see baby steps. Hope is born in my heart, even as I experience discrimination and violence. In the future, when I'm gone, if my forgiveness is needed for all the injustices I've experienced to make this vision a reality, I give it freely. I forgive. That's it. Oh, and you can get my book in at Amazon. So Amazon.ca, I think, would be the easiest way to get it.